We've had a few days now to digest all of these new Model Y designs, and as of today, Giga Berlin has already started building. I believe at low volumes, the refreshed Model Y as well. Who knows when the Fremont factory is going to be ready, or if they're just going to start at the Texas factory. But now that I've been looking at it for a while, getting a lot of different people's takes and opinions, I feel like the design, at least for me, is just a little off. It doesn't feel quite right. And I'm not trying to talk you out of buying one. If you love the design out there, I'm happy for you. In fact, if you do like this design, it's probably better off that you just don't watch this video, but personally, I still think the Model 3 is the better looking Tesla overall. In fact, just the better overall Tesla because of the better range, better efficiency at the lower price, but I think I'm finally figuring out what sets me off a little bit. It makes me feel a little weird about the refresh Model Y, and it's because it's kind of a mix match of multiple design philosophies put together. See, I was actually quite a fan of the Cybercab design and look and aesthetic overall, even though the Cybercab was certainly a bit of a blurring between Cybertruck and Model 3. They had that indirect light bar design on the back, which I highly encourage you to check out if you ever get the opportunity to look at one in person, but I think it felt a little bit more intentional because similar to the Cybertruck, that indirect light bar stretched all the way to the edge, and while trying to keep a aerodynamic feel while still having angular edges, I think those sharp points that the light bar meets to really fill out the design in a really elegant and simplistic way, and I think that's something Tesla does really well, especially with their interior designs. They still want to have some analog with those scroll wheels, which are actually quite versatile with the clicking and holding down, and of course scrolling up and down, and then everything on that main display. There's actually a lot of things you can do in that Tesla interior that make it comfortable and easy to road trip with, and yet it feels very elegant. It doesn't feel like anything is out of place or that anything doesn't need to be there, but once I come back to the refresh Model Y, it feels like they're combining attributes of the refresh Model 3, like the forked taillight shape on both ends, but then you throw in the indirect light bar from the Cybercab, and that light bar meets inward to the curved refreshed Model 3's style taillights, and I feel like instead of leaning all in on one design philosophy, where you're like, yes, we're going all in on Cyber, they kinda went halfway Cyber and halfway Highland Model 3 refresh, and you just get a little bit of both, which in my opinion makes it feel a little bit less elegant. It doesn't feel as intentional. It feels like you had one team in charge of the rear design, you had a different team in charge of the front design, which there were a lot of people also echoing my opinions with the light bar on the front. Not just that it's kind of typical for a lot of EVs these days, lots of people buy vehicles with light bars, but also that they were bizarrely split with these little seams down the middle. And I wouldn't be surprised if this is somewhat of a manufacturing efficiency standpoint, but I think most people are right in agreeing that we're used to seeing the light bar on the Cybertruck now and the Cybercab for a little while, and those don't have the lines down the middle. So again, it feels kind of familiar like other Teslas, but now they're just like, yeah, but we're gonna mix it up a little bit, so it's not exactly the same. And if I could describe it in vehicle design terms, I would say it feels almost like a little bit of uncanny valley. It's like you're not quite all the way to what a Cybertruck light bar or a Cybercab light bar is, but you're also not looking like the refresh Model 3, so you're in this like in-between zone, and it feels a little uncanny to me. Maybe it would totally change if I saw it in person, but my opinion of it certainly hasn't gotten better after hearing my wife's thoughts on it repeatedly. Every time I showed it to her, she was kind of like, why does everything have to have a light bar? What function does that serve? You know, it's just added complexity, it's added cost, and it doesn't really do anything. My wife's exact words were, it's a bit dorky, and it feels a little bit more flashy to her. At least I started to agree with her after a while, like, yeah, those light bars aren't really serving much of a functional purpose. It's mostly just like, look at me, look at this car, look how futuristic it is. It's meant to be futuristic, so we have to do all of the classic, stereotypical, futuristic style design attributes. But I feel like they honestly could have gone a little bit further with the Cyber aesthetic and made it really just look like a bigger four-door Cybercab, and then the design characteristics might be a little bit more consistent. But because, you know, it's still this blurring, it's still this blend of design styles where we still have the exact same side profile, you know, the taillights and door handles are all still there. I actually think if you wanted to go futuristic and Cybercab-esque, you probably would have been better off ditching these door handles and gone with the same thing we have on the Cybertruck, just little door buttons, and you just push those when you want the door to open open and then you pull it the rest of the way yourself. But I do think Tesla did a much better job on the interior, especially with the improved speakers, and I'm very thankful that they've added the powered second row seats. I think that's going to be massively convenient, and because I know Tesla is able to control both front seats remotely from the display, it would be cool if they could prevent the second row seats from getting caught on the front row seats, which happens all the time in present day Model Ys and 3s. You know, if the front row seats are folded too far forward, then when you try to fold the second row seats flat, they get caught because the headrest is too tall. So if they could design it in a way that the car detects that the front row seats are not occupied, they could have the front row seats slide forward just enough for the second row seats to go flat, and then the front row seats can fold backwards to their original position. I also love the fact that they included a drainage hole on the frunk. It's not powered, by the way. I think that was somehow misconstrued by everybody when they just saw the animation of the frunk opening, but all Teslas do that. Anytime you open the frunk, the animation does that. But even though the frunk may not be powered, the fact that it's bigger than before and has a drainage hole so you can fill it with ice is awesome, and it looks really sharp on the inside, and I can't wait to test drive one to see how smooth the suspension feels, because apparently the dynamics should be much better. Also, they apparently improved the heat performance of the panoramic glass roof, so now it won't let as much heat through as before, which should improve efficiency and make the climate control not have to work as hard. So there's all kinds of great things that they've brought in this refresh. I'm not trying to downplay the refresh at all. I'm mostly just critiquing the exterior design and why it doesn't necessarily look all that great to me, but I think that looks ultimately aren't that important. Even for the exterior, most of the time you're using this vehicle, you're gonna be on the inside, and that's where they really got it where it counted. And it should be mentioned that, you know, the Tesla Model Y has become globally the best-selling vehicle in the world. It's beating all kinds of records in China and in Europe and in the US. It's just a fantastic product, and from the beginning, it always just kind of looked like an obese Model 3. It was honestly never a very great-looking car. It was always just kind of standard, unoffensive. You know it when you see it. It's like, yep, that's a crossover. But the main thing that attracted people to it, I think, was the range, the efficiency, the affordability, and the software and the tech. And that's what Tesla got right with it, which is why I do think this will still sell incredibly well. But if you're asking my opinion on whether or not I would buy one personally, I would still rather go with the Model 3, just because I think the design qualities are like pre-cyber era for Tesla. It was before they decided that everything needs to have a light bars, everything needs to look like the future. The Model 3 just screams elegance to me. It was like nothing is there that doesn't need to be there. They went as simple as they could with the headlights being more slimmed down and more aerodynamic than before. That's something I like about the Model 3 refresh, is there was a bigger push towards aerodynamics. From what we've heard about the refresh Model Y, it doesn't seem like aero was massively improved. Maybe 3%, 4% better. So there's not going to be a giant improvement in range, and to me it's just insane that in real world range tests with the rear-wheel drive Model 3, they were able to achieve over 380 miles on a charge on a more affordable product, actually Tesla's cheapest vehicle in the US, and the design qualities just look so much more intentional and, in my opinion, a lot less flashy. It's not like, hey, look at me, look at my fancy car. It's just quiet, simplistic, and like, yes, everything is as it needs to be. Doesn't have to be flashy, doesn't have to do light shows, tricks, or anything like that. They just focused on making a quality product, and I don't know, the refreshed Model Y, the more real-world pictures of it I see, I just don't really like all of these new lines with the hatch design. I guess that's supposed to help with like fitment and finish on the manufacturing side, but I don't know, the flat rear on it just feels a little bit out of place, and I'm glad they added the front bumper camera. I was asking for that, and I really hope they bring that to the refresh Model 3 next year or something. But overall, if you're asking me which Tesla is the better purchase, I still think most people exaggerate how much they need that extra storage space. It'll be like 99% of the year that you can just get by with a Model 3 in terms of storage, because you can fold down that second row. There's a lot of space in the back. I've moved a ton of crap in my Model 3, and I would rather have more range and more money in my pocket, and in my opinion, Model 3 is just a better overall looking vehicle. And if you're in the market, of course, feel free to use a referral code like the one in the description below. Get yourself some good discounts on a new Tesla if you are in the market, but stay tuned until the Model Y refresh comes to the US. Of course, I'll be covering that and trying to get my hands on one as soon as I possibly can. Thank you to everybody supporting this channel directly. It seriously helps us out a ton, as does just watching these videos. So thanks again. Have an excellent rest of your day.